Yo, so I have this Instagram series on my Reels talking about the connection between spirituality and lifting. And unfortunately, I've lost the audio to a lot of the Reels, so I'm gonna sort of pontificate on it because I have all the clips at least. And the point of this is to sort of draw the parallel between spirituality and lifting and how the two reinforce each other. So, in this beginning episode, the first thing I did was draw upon the artist Sun Ra, who said, "The truth is what we do every day," and how that we need to go beyond the truth. And in order to go beyond the truth, we have to build a mythos. And building that mythos is something you can do with the truth, it's something that you can do every day. And the idea that lifting is an incredible act of faith. It is a bet that you will be here in 6 months or 3 months to reap the rewards of what you're doing now. You're putting in that work. You're making that truth of lifting. You're doing the habit because you have faith that you'll be here tomorrow. You'll be here to see what you've done, whatever goal you've set for yourself. And that in itself is a very spiritual practice. Building your mythos, living your truth are both very spiritual practices. And at this point, when I made this first reel, the connection was fuzzy, but I knew I felt it because that that declaration of faith of like what I'm doing today will matter tomorrow in a very real way, in a way that it gets practiced, not that's forced upon me by society. No one's forcing me to lift, was very important for me to recognize. And then going into the second episode where I visited my friend Raymond in Philly, I sort of explored the idea between discipline and habit, right? So once again, if I'm going to say that lifting is a, spiritual exercise, that lifting is has some sort of spiritual truth to it, there has to be a way to communicate between the physical realm, what you're doing in the physical realm, and the spiritual realm in regards to lifting particularly. And I noted sort of like there are these habits and there's this thing called discipline. And yes, with good discipline, you can form good habits. But with good discipline, can you reinforce the physical plane actions into the spiritual plane? And this took a long time, to think about, right? Like, I still wasn't sure. How do we reinforce one with the other? What are the things about lifting that makes it such a spiritual practice? And how can you take habits and disciplines that you have in the everyday physical life and apply it to your faith, to your spirituality, to your mental and emotional life? And vice versa, right? So I thought about this and how I get stronger through that. And the more and more I talked about it, the more and more I wanted to explore it. And I think I finally found it here on this third episode. Fitness as Spirituality, Episode 3, Resilience, right? One of the big overlapping things between fitness and spirituality is the idea of resilience, right? The reason that so many of us work out in the first place is to be more resilient, especially for whatever our sport is or for just everyday life. We are trying to be tougher. We are trying to be more resilient. And the reason that people meditate and pray and go through the religious practices or the non-religious practices that they do for their spirituality is for the same reason. They want to be resilient, so when life tests them with trials and tribulations, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, they can get through it. And this reinforcement can happen in both. If you look at lifting as a spiritual practice, if you look at every squat you do, every workout you do as building your both mental and physical resiliency, you can then apply it to your spirituality and vice versa. If you look at every prayer you do as fortifying yourself, if you look at every meditation cycle you do as clarifying yourself, you can then take those things and apply that resilience to the physicality, right? So, we know who we are and we stand firm in that. And you have to practice how you play and sort of making that realization that these are both so interconnected in the forms of just making yourself more resilient. And that resiliency allows you to have the faith was really a big breakthrough for me. And then finally, I was thinking about sort of like, is lifting in itself, a moral experience? Because if it's a spiritual experience, is it a moral one? And I came to the conclusion that it can't be, right? There's nothing inherently moral about lifting in itself. However, what you do with it, it's a tool, is what makes you moral immoral, right? If you aren't helping the old lady with her groceries, if you aren't helping the people at the airport put their overhead luggage in, if you aren't, moving the couch for your mom, then there is no morality in your lifting. You're just lifting for vanity or whatever it is you want. But if you're using that practice to reinforce your daily habits and the communities that you're in, then lifting, which is a spiritual practice, also becomes a moral one. It also has some moral weight. And I think it's actually really important to try and apply this concept to everything. Most things are tools. These tools will help build your spirituality. If you don't wield these tools in a moral way, are you really building your spirituality? And are you really building your physicality? Or are you just sort of doing exercises in vanity? It's really, it's a complicated question, and I'm not sure I necessarily answered in the reels. I did a better job. Again, I lost all the audio. You can kind of see the voiceovers in it. So feel free to check out my Instagram and tell me what you think. Thanks, guys.